Paradai, who is the Executive Vice President of Corporate Communications at TMB Bank. And I first saw Paradai last year at a Sufficiency Economy Symposium where Muhammad Yunus, Nobel Prize winner, was the keynote speaker, and Paradai was also a speaker there, and I was extremely impressed by his eloquence and the message that he brought to the symposium that day, and I'd like to share with you that message again today. Today, I'd like to introduce a little bit more about his background first. So before joining TMB Bank in 2008, he's done both public and private sector work. In the public sector, he was an advisor to Governor Theerathada on foreign relations and urban economics for Bangkok. And he was also a director in the communications firm Thurston Marsteller in Thailand. In the private sector, he was in the pioneering team that launched Orange, which is now True. And he also stayed on True to work to help them with corporate affairs and customer affinity. And then later joined GE Capital for 3 years as Senior Vice President for Corporate Communications and Brand Experience. I'm very proud to introduce you to Paradai and to everything you know about CSR is wrong. Please welcome Paradai together with me. Here.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? It's a small room. Apologize about the title of the presentation, for the negative connotation. I don't think that everything you know is wrong. I just want to get you in the door. So I think that was pretty successful. But I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about our corporate social responsibility at TMB. And we use a slogan called "Make the Difference." So we just want to tell you a little bit how we feel we're making the difference in the community. When we embarked on this journey, we had two options. We could either do what we're currently doing, which is just a very scattered CSR program, giving to all kinds of NGOs, all kinds of organizations. But we really saw that it wasn't making a strong impact, and it wasn't really helping the cause. And that's what I want to talk to you today about. Because as we look around, something dangerous is happening. Okay? More and more lower socioeconomic groups are becoming needy. Okay? And to address those needs, a lot of corporations are trying to be good citizens. The intentions are good, but are the end results positive? And that's the question I've got. Being in the banking industry, these things scare me a lot. Donation boxes. Everywhere you go nowadays, there's a donation box, right? If you put money in, or corporations sponsor it, at the end of the day, do you really know where that money is going? Okay? And from a banking perspective, this is wrought with operational risk, transparency issues, fraud issues, and so forth. And ultimately, at the end of the day, there could be a lot of room for misappropriation. Okay? You recall the floods, and all of the news you heard about the floods, and whether water was going to those that were in need, whether supplies were going to the right people. Okay? So the danger here is many organizations who want to do CSR, many organizations that want to do CSR look at the end of the pipeline. Is there extra money left over from our budget? And if so, at the end of the year, let's give some to NGOs or charitable organizations. So it becomes like a corporation goes to a confessional to cleanse them of their sins so that they feel okay about being a part of the community, and then we operate as normal. But when you do that, it's very dangerous. It is unsustained. It's just a one-time activity, and it's unsustained. It can be a dangerous thing. It's a good intention, right? But I've always learned that good intentions are pave the way to hell, right? Because what happens is the end user, the community, people in need, begin to rely on those donations. They rely on handouts. They wait from handout to handout. And I've seen this before we embarked on our CSR. walk through the community, they're asking, what can you give us? Do you give us some scholarships? Do you give us some money? They're waiting. It's just a different form of begging. Okay? And what happens is, you're breeding a culture of entitlement. That's not what we want to see. Entitlement. And at the end of the day, it's really just putting a small bandage on a very, very big problem. It's superficial. You're putting something when there's already a problem, but it's not rectifying the problem itself. So when we designed our CSR program, we wanted to have empowerment as the root driver, not entitlement. I wrote fish here because I think there's a Thai saying, teach people how to fish rather than just giving them the fish. Right? So before I talk about how TMB does CSR, I'm going to show you a commercial that explains the TMB philosophy. It's about making a difference. So, do I just push? Go ahead. This is 5 minutes.
ถ้าพูดถึงทีมฟุตบอลของเราคงต้องย้อนกลับไปที่วันแรกที่นี่ชาวบ้านชอบดูฟุตบอลกันมากแต่ไม่มีใครเคยเล่นหรอกก็อย่างที่เห็นเรากินนอนอยู่บนน้ำมาแต่ไหนแต่ไรแล้วเพราะที่นี่ไม่มีบอลดินสักนิดกีฬาอย่างเดียวที่เล่นกันได้คือแข่งเรือไม่กับหม้อก็ล่างปลาที่จับได้วันนั้นแหละความคิดเล็กๆก็เกิดขึ้นพวกเราคิดตั้งทีมฟุตบอลขึ้นมาแต่ชาวบ้านก็คิดว่าพวกเราว่า
เด็กพวกนี้ส่งเสียงอะไรกันปากว่าทีมหมดแล้วเราตั้งทีมก่อนเราจะเป็นแชมป์โลกมีแต่เลยกันพี่กันทีมตกมือ
ที่อย่างที่แกพูดพวกเราไม่มีแม้แต่ที่ให้เล่นฟุตบอลพอเราจัดทีมกันเสร็จปัญหาต่อมาก็คือเราจะเตะกันที่ไหนล่ะที่นี่มีแต่การเล่นแคบๆแล้วเราก็มีความคิดว่าเราต้องสร้างพื้นที่ของเราเองเรารวบรวมเศษไม้เก่าๆผูกเข้ากับแพปลาทำอย่างนี้ทุกวันหลังเลิกเรียนสร้างสนามของเราขึ้นมามันยอดเยี่ยมแต่มีวัตถุเต็มไปหมดบนตกน้ำบ่อยมากเลยพวกเราด้วยแต่เราก็เลยรู้ในการเล่นบนสนามแบบนี้เพราะนี่แหละสนามของเรา
สนามนี้จะเป็นแชมป์โลก
ไปสมัครการแข่งขันฟุตบอล
พังงาครับ
แข่งนี่เหรอไม่รู้ดิแล้วเราจะสู้กับเขาไหวเหรอแล้วเราก็ตัดสินใจลงแข่งถึงจะไม่มีชุดก็เถอะ
นี่เลยแชมป์ชุดนี้เราอย่างแรง
เราไม่รู้มาก่อนว่าจริงๆแล้วชาวบ้านก็สนใจเราเหมือนกันพวกเขาเอาชุดมาให้แถมตามไปเชียร์ด้วยตอนนั้นเราตื่นเต้นนะแต่พอเข้าจริงเราทำได้ดีกว่าที่คาดไว้จังหวะเท้าของเราดีกว่าจากการเลี้ยงหลอกตะปูประตูในสนามจริงใหญ่กว่าตั้งเยอะแล้วเราก็เข้าถึงรอบ4 ทีมสุดท้ายวันนั้นฝนตกหนักมากแถมคู่แข่งก็เป็นแชมป์เก่ารองเท้าของเราเต็มไปด้วยน้ำ หมดครึ่งแรกเราโดนนำไป2 ลูกเราสู้ไม่ได้จริงๆเราไม่รู้จะทำยังไงหลังจากครึ่งแรกที่เราสู้ไม่ได้เราต้องทำอะไรบางอย่างเราต้องกลับไปเล่นฟุตบอลแบบของเราด้วยการถอดรองเท้ามันเป็นฟุตบอลแบบที่เราถนัดจริงๆคู่แข่งสู้เราไม่ได้เราเล่นดีขึ้นทำได้ดีขึ้นเราตีเสมอได้เราคิดว่าเราจะชนะแต่เพราะลูกนั้นในนาทีสุดท้ายนั่นแหละเราไม่เสียใจหรอกดีใจซะอีกที่มาได้ไกลขนาดนี้แถมชาวบ้านทุกคนก็ภูมิใจด้วย
แค่นี้ก็สุดยอดแล้ว
หลังจากนั้นความคิดของคนทั้งเกาะก็เปลี่ยนไปวันนี้เรามีสนามใหม่ที่ไม่มีตะปูแล้ว แต่เราก็ยังไม่ได้เล่นบนสนามหญ้าอยู่ดี
แล้วเรื่องของคุณล่ะ TMB เชื่อว่าพลังในตัวคุณเปลี่ยนโลกให้ดีขึ้น TMB Make the difference.
Okay, so that was the commercial we launched the corporate brand with, Make a Difference. Very hard philosophy to understand, especially since we're going out to market in English. So we really have to try to explain the philosophy of Make a Difference. And as you can see, it's all about empowerment. The power inside you can change your world for the better. And we want to explain that this is not the world like Earth, but your world around you, your family, your community. Everything that we do, including CSR, is aligned to this concept of empowerment. We need to explain that people have the power in them to change their own lives as individuals. And once you do that, there's a ripple effect that goes out. Your friends and family will start to feel that energy, that electricity, and they'll start to change. So that's what we're trying to create, is this positive ripple effect. So how does TMB make a difference in the community? I told you it's about the power in you. This word Fai-Fah in Thai means electricity or energy. But this was my poor attempt at trying to come up with a Thai name in a branded way. So quite literally, Fai is light, Fa is blue. The word blue bank, blue light sounds good. But beyond that, the meaning was actually a good one. Electricity. So people have the electricity within them. But it's up to some people to facilitate for those who can't unlock that electricity out. So the concept of Fai-Fah is helping children in lower socio-economic communities change themselves and change their community. This idea of empowerment. But we do it through the arts. Okay? One thing that we learned was that, okay, we want to teach these kids life skills. But if we just go directly to these kids in the slums and say, hey, you know, drugs are bad. Don't gamble. They're going to say, who are you? We don't trust you. They barely trust adults in their own community, let alone strangers. So the icebreaker is the arts part. And it helps train their competencies and skill sets. Why do we do this? Well, look around. You know, even some government-subsidized programs like TK Park, which is at Central World, these kids aren't going to go there. And there are plenty of infrastructure for middle to upper income kids. You can see the name. So what happens is this. They go to schools, government-sponsored schools. They come home after school. Their parents aren't usually there to support them. Their parents are usually messengers, housekeepers, drivers, and they're trying to make ends meet. So at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the kid comes home, no parental infrastructure. What happens? They get caught up into this vicious cycle where their friends are in motorcycle gangs, they're gambling, they're drinking. It's a very negative environment. And at the end, as they grow up, they can't break out of this cycle, they'll become just like their parents. The reason we think that we make the difference in the community is we go to the root cause of this problem. These children lack recognition. They lack life skills because of this infrastructure. They don't have a positive reinforcement. Okay? So we want to break that vicious negative cycle. And in that void, we put the arts. But don't forget that ultimately I'm trying to teach them life skills, right? So arts is just the channel, it's just a means, and it's a fun way to bring volunteers and the children together. And then once the trust is established, then we can start to introduce life skills. So what do? When I say arts, it could be painting and drawing. The Thai Chefs Association, the chefs that you guys go to at the leading hotels in Thailand, come to volunteer their time. They learn taekwondo, dance, even hydroponic gardening. And these skills, hydroponic gardening, they can take into their communities where there's no real grass. Yeah, it's just all concrete. An interesting story is that before we launched Fai-Fah, we did a workshop. We brought a British artist in to do a workshop, and her project was draw your ideal dream house. Draw your ideal dream house. 50-some kids. Every drawing, every house came back like this. Rectangular body, triangular roof. Something you never see in Thailand, really. But this is the right way to draw a house, as taught to the kids in school. Right way to think about water is that it's blue. To think about the sky is blue. Green, grass is green. Chao Phraya River never blew, right? After 6 months of being at Fai-Fah, this is what they were starting to come out with. This is the electricity in them that was never unlocked. Now, coming to Fai-Fah is completely free. The one requirement that we have is on a quarterly basis, they go with the artists in residence of each of the Fai-Fah centers to look at their own communities. And from a practical level and from an artistic level, how can those communities be improved using the skills that you've learned at Fai-Fah? The goal of this is to start a catalyst for the community to start to want to change themselves. Because if I have a nice footpath and I live around that nice footpath, hey, maybe it's time I paint my house. Those of you in America who have seen neighbors competing about their lawns will understand this mentality, right? This is what we call macro projects. So we do that quarterly at each of the Fai-Fah centers. And this is a great opportunity for kids to start to look at the problem and realize that they are the drivers for change. They're empowered to do that from what they've learned. So macro projects are completely driven by the children, and they use adults as leverage, as a resource. Okay, so they have to identify the issues. They have to analyze how to bridge the gaps. They have to develop the solutions, and then they have to plan and implement from a logistics basis. And here are some examples of macro projects that we've done. So this is at Wat Paradai. As you can see, some of these fences just had holes in them. So what was happening, this was identified by the children, kids were walking, not paying attention and falling in and drowning, dying. Yeah. So the plan was, okay, let's use these metal rods, put them with beads in an artistic way, and we'll fill those holes. And then we'll improve the look and feel of the area. Okay? So this is completely thought of by the kids. Same thing here. This is the main road, believe it or not, the main road that goes into 5 slum communities. No wider than this. Okay? Every day you have motorcycles coming, dogs, elderly. And this is a 2-way road. At night, there are no lights. So what you see before is this aluminum, rusted aluminum. People were cutting themselves as they were walking. So simple idea, make a smart board wall, we'll paint it, make it nice, and it's safe. Okay, and then we'll continuously improve that area. The sustainability part comes from the community. The community has to be arms and legs to help implement these macro projects. So the children are lobbying their moms and dads, their community, that hey, we're going to do this project, but we're not going to do it unless you guys get involved. This is a smart model from Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity never just builds a house for someone. The owner has to be involved, right? Enhanced Child Development Center, Paradai. So the goal of the macro projects is to teach something that schools cannot. Thai schools don't really emphasize teamwork. They don't really reinforce brainstorming or coming outside of the box. Strategic planning, budget development. So what happens is the kids can use what they know and start from an ideation, point of ideation, all the way to implementation. So now they have something that they can be proud of. It's not something that they're just going to contribute. It's self-initiated. So before, the kids come in unrecognized, lack pride, lack confidence. But after a while, self-esteem starts to build up. Recognition from the good work that they've done, and then their confidence starts to come up. And then they're at a position where they can start to become leaders to give back to the community. They become the big buddies that start to teach the new kids that come how to give back, how to feel empowered. And the proof really is in the pudding. So we've been doing this for about 3 years, right? 3 years. And we get involved with other great events, other great programs. Heinz Junior Chef Competition, we won awards there. We've gotten university scholarships for these children. They've won Taekwondo tournaments for 3 years. Yeah? And what we found is, once you start doing good and it's genuine, grassroots, attacks the root cause, then people will want to be a part of it. Okay? So we've been lucky enough to have fantastic architects help us to design the Fai-Fah centers. The first one was Bill Bensley. He's considered top 100 architects in the world by Architectural Digest. He heard about this project. He designed the first Fai-Fah center pro bono. Then the guys who designed Clark P in Singapore, Spark, heard about it and said, hey, we can help as well. So they designed the second one, free. And then, if you've been to Eat Me at Soi Pipat, the guy who designed that heard about the project. He designed the third one for free. Then you get universities involved, our corporate clients and so forth. It's a great hub for collaboration. So this is the first one, Bill Bensley at Prakipat. This center emphasizes cooking, okay, where the Thai Chefs Association comes. Some of you are going to go visit this one this weekend, right? This is the second one at Prakipat, designed by Spark, the guys who did Clark Key in Singapore. Look how different that looks compared to all the other shop houses. So each one is not just a cookie cutter. Each Fai-Fah is designed to be inspirational, that you can make something extraordinary out of a shop house you see every day. It's no more than a bank branch in terms of investment. Oops, sorry. And this is inside. Very inspirational for the kids. And this is the third one at John Road. Okay, this is the one designed by the designer of Eat Me. And this one focuses on fashion design. The second one was industrial design, and we work in collaboration with KMUT, King Mongkut University, for them to teach that. This focuses on industrial design. Sorry, fashion design. So our intention is wherever there are lower socioeconomic communities, slum communities, and if we have branches in that area, we want to expand Fai-Fah Center. Okay? But again, the power of Fai-Fah is not the center. It's the relationships that are developed between the volunteer and the child. So we don't need to wait for the centers. Why? Because banks have branches. We have 450 branches nationwide. Bank of Thailand was trying to tell us, you can't do this. You can only do banking activities. But we got away with doing these Fai-Fah in the box, where the employees of the bank branch have to go out into their micro communities identify problem areas and work with kids there. And then we're going to use that as the model for expansion later on, wherever we start to see the need. Okay? Because I can't be in 450 locations nationwide. Right? So this is a great indicator. So what's in it for me? From the kids' perspective and the volunteer perspective. One amazing thing is, when you go to Fai-Fah this Saturday or Sunday, you're not going to see any parents. You'll never see parents. The kids go there on their own. Self-initiated, they go there on time. Yeah, these kids 12 to 17 years old. My kids, 11 to 13, I have to force to go to piano lessons. These kids want to go, okay? So the way we're institutionalizing Fai-Fah is to reinforce the concept of make the difference. So as an organization, we're telling all of our employees, hey, you gotta make a difference, you gotta make a difference. How can we train them to make a difference? We can teach them from a theory level. But, guess what? By using Fai-Fah, it can be an experiential, tangible way to make the difference. And as a result of doing that, all of these competencies start coming up. And these are competencies that every organization needs, right? And the kids get this. So what happens is, the children get all of those skill sets, they take it back to the community to contribute back to the community. But at the same time, the employees get those skill sets, and they can bring it back to TMB to make a difference inside the organization, whilst doing something good for the community in return, right? So these are all the change agents, and we segment our volunteers to be the people who want to just go and fix the community. They don't want planning. They just want to go pick up the hammer and start nailing. Thought volunteers are the ones who help develop the macro activities as a resource with the children. And then the one that requires a lot of time is big buddies, okay? Because you have to really devote time. It has to be sustainable. It can't just be, hi, I'm your friend, and then you disappear, right? But as a result of all of these components, we start to really see change in the community and the attitude of the community near Fai-Fah. And the way we do it is a great team building tool. So you start to know that as an individual you can change, as an organization you can change, and as a community you can change. And that becomes the embodiment of this make a difference culture at TMB. And ultimately, by doing this, by having all of this alignment of CSR, the brand, how we deal with our employees from an empowerment perspective, our organization as a whole becomes very, very strong. And at the end of the day, we have empowered communities, empowered kids and empowered communities. That's my presentation. Okay?
Thank you very much, Kakun Paradai. Now we open up the floor for questions.
That's an awesome presentation. I love Fai-Fah. I come from the NGO sector about 15 years, and reaching out to a lot of different corporations, major corporations in the States, in support of the NGOs that I've worked with. So my question, you mentioned Habitat for Humanity. You showed a photo of Habitat for Humanity, but what are some of the NGOs in the local communities that are already working on some of the same issues that your Make the Difference change agents have identified? How are you, do you do a community mapping? If you don't know what I'm talking about, I can explain. A community mapping of the NGOs, and how do you work with them? How do you identify NGOs, and how do you work with them if you do?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Before we started off on developing our own, it would have been much easier to work with an NGO, genuinely working with them, not just on a one-off event. Okay? And we looked for synergies across Thailand. Synergies in regards to which NGOs embody the philosophy of make a difference for us. So very much we try to align which CSR activity we chose with how does it reinforce our brand. And we saw a few, but it didn't quite go the distance that we wanted. And it couldn't involve our employees constantly. Okay? a lot of NGOs would develop structured programs for us, and then we would come in and sort of be the hands and legs. But we're trying to teach people how to think. The good thing about NGOs is they've done the thinking, a lot of the thinking for the corporations. But we're trying to get children to start to think. We're trying to get our employees to start to think about what they can do to give back. And we couldn't find that match. So we decided to do our own. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
Another question?
Oh, by the way, it's nice to see people in different stages of my career here. We worked together when I was with the Bangkok governor, and Curtis was at Burson, Marsteller. I met you, I think, when I was at GE. Yeah, you were also coming. So that's very nice.
Hi, my name is Rojana from CSR Asia Center at AIT. Actually, I also had a background with NGOs, so I wanted to know what were the criteria for you to choose those 3 Fai-Fah centers, because from what my experience is that, like, you know, you had all the slum communities everywhere in Bangkok, and the other question was that, like, I know of some NGOs that their philosophy of work, or that they work on the human rights-based approach and to empower the communities. But I was surprised that you said that you haven't really found a match to work with TMB. So how did you approach the NGO, or what were your strategy to find them? That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
No, I think when I said that our focus is on empowerment, and we were canvassing for NGOs, it doesn't mean that there were no NGOs that represented that concept of empowerment. But for our goals and objectives of trying to develop our employees on a very sustainable and hands-on basis, meaning every day, using it as a source of team building and so forth, we would have to take over that entire NGO, and that NGO would have to have an exclusive partnership with TMB, which most NGOs don't want to have. Okay? Something like Habitat for Humanity does great work, but they don't do exclusive partnership. For us to be able to imprint our vision and reinforce the brand, our concept, we really have to own it ourselves. It doesn't mean that other NGOs didn't have similar vision. Okay. With regard to your other question, how do we choose the Fai-Fah locations? It's based on the intensity of the slum communities. So most of these Fai-Fahs are surrounded by 3 to 5 slum communities, each with about 500 plus children within the age group that we're looking for. It's about the proximity so that the kids don't need to rely on public transport. They don't need to rely on their parents to motorcycle them in. They can basically walk. So yeah, as we try to expand, we've been looking at places to expand nationwide. But most of the slum communities are in fact in Bangkok. So there's a high intensity here. So that's why we're just sort of spiraling out. And then seeing where the need is, using our bank branches as an indicator. Yeah. But you had one more question, right? Sorry, Curtis.
Come back to your first answer, like, I was thinking that if you work with NGO, maybe you will also have your allies to work to make a greater impact. So I was thinking that maybe is it also for your next strategy or next year's move that maybe you can also still be a partnership with NGO that would have their branch at base all over Thailand. Thank you.
Great idea. Thank you. Hi, Curtis.
Hi, how are you? Hey, as you know, I was with you at Burson and then with the U.S. government at U.S. Treasury on the board of the Asian Development Bank, and I'm often frustrated with NGOs because they have no sense of business sometimes. But businesses sometimes also have, we can have another debate, but businesses also have no sense sometimes of the NGOs, there's a little bit of a disconnect. For this, it's about the brand, it's about involving your employees, but I want to know how you budget for it. Is it a year-to-year budget? Are you able to spread the budget around HR, because I'm telling you it's part of your employee morale program, marketing, we're advancing the brand, CSR, government relations. Is it a percentage of revenues, or every year you're fighting the big bosses for budget? Because I think, as you know, when we were on the other side, arguing with our GE or other clients that they should do more, there's no budget, because they don't necessarily see a direct connection to what they're worried about, returns or shareholders. So how do you specifically budget for this year to year? Is it spread around departments and all? Thanks.
Coming from GE, a good rule of thumb for most organizations similar to GE, it was about 1% of profit that was allocated towards CSR. Okay? But GE has a huge volunteerism program. We have our head of finance here from TMB, by the way, who I wanted to come see all this stuff.
She wants to give you
But we tried to follow a similar model. At first we were thinking 1% of revenue, no, but 1% profit. Okay? And what we've developed in parallel is a foundation by which we can, in the future, take external donations in a transparent way so that they can be used for operating expenses and future expansion as well. But I'll tell you something. If you have a CSR program that is aligned, reinforces, and many times, like you'll see this year, spearheads the brand direction, then it becomes a strategic part of the way you do business. And that helps with convincing top management and the board.
So do you do 1%? Or
Do we
you're
do
not allowed to
1%?
disclose?
No, we're not up to 1% yet. But that's the framework that we have, is that we're going to try to expand wherever there's a need. So nationwide, we want to get there.
Sure.
But the thing that will help in complement to that is the foundation where we're going to take outside donations. Or we'll use our credit card points so that instead of the accumulation of points going towards a refrigerator, that money can be used towards buying supplies for the kids at
And
Fai-Fah.
since it's all in-house, before or with the foundation, do you get a tax benefit in Thailand? Is the law such to give you a tax? Or do you need to create a foundation
Once you create
to
the
get your tax
foundation.
benefit?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, I thought you would say something to Curtis.
This may not be the forum.
It'd be more fun for
Curtis, NGOs are businesses. I believe they need to be run as businesses.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
have a bottom line, but the bottom line is usually social impact. But my question is actually, has TMB partnered or gained inspiration from other banks or corporations in their CSR activities? And I'm specifically going to reference Citibank, because they have remarkable community initiatives around the globe. I've been able to have the honor to work with their teams in New York and Baltimore on behalf of some organizations. But their caveat, usually with the funding for NGO programs, is a financial literacy component. So does TMB, I guess my question is twofold. Are there other banks or corporations that you gain inspiration or model your CSR Fai-Fah programs after? And secondly, do your programs always have to have some type of financial component because you're a bank?
That's a good question. Fai-Fah came out as a result of a brainstorm I had with my CEO. First thing that came to mind, which is a typical CSR for banks, not that it's bad, but is financial literacy. And I thought, okay, maybe we should focus on financial literacy for first jobbers. Other banks are doing that, and they're doing it really well. Okay. SCB also has great contests for children. So that is something that my team, Nokowan, is here. We've discussed that we're not against by any means. In fact, we said that if we can determine where our spot is in helping this growth of children or empowerment of children, if it complements what other banks do, perhaps we can hand off in the future. But we have to establish ours to be very solid first before we can have that sort of value chain across bank to bank. The financial part and where it's going to start to make sense and connect the dots for us as a bank in teaching financial literacy is all of these elements can in fact one day become social business. So the art that's developed in-house can become a social business or an art gallery. We're talking with WTF Gallery about something like that. The kids that are cooking can be a pop-up cafe, and that can be part of the social business. So that's what Dr. Youssef and I were talking about, how to transition from this program being fully funded by TMB to becoming, getting budget from a foundation perspective and then getting money from the kids so that they can start to do it. And then that's where we can teach our financial literacy again, but in a very practical way about, hey, this is your artwork, you can sell it for this, see if you can cover costs and things like that. Thank you.
One more question? Two more questions.
My name is Soon from Cabinet. We are the bank customer, so we hope that actually the bank has been very kind to us and giving us substantial financial support. This is the thing that maybe the bank would also support us in Cabinet as a customer. We have been doing a lot of the CSR activity, but we have not been, I would say, very successful. Not to the grade that you have described. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more, if it's not the secret, it's internally in the bank. I have understood that TMB have, let's say, merged together several banks. And through that process, you have put together employee people from different cultures, from different way of working. And that can create a certain amount of internal conflict problems. And this CSR activity that the bank has implemented has it been, let's say, designed by the top management with the support of all the staff, and through this successful implementation, has that been able to create the unity inside the bank? So has the bank staff, how the bank staff really take this activity?
Okay, great question. That's almost in another presentation I have, actually, about the brand transformation. So when ING came in as a major shareholder of TMB about 4 years ago, it's a 53-year-old bank. And you're right, when I joined, it was really a mutt of a bank. A mutt because we had IFCT as one of the shareholders before, DBS, Taitanu, Ministry of Finance, now ING. You get management from GE, Citibank, Standard Chartered, and you're right. It's the platform is not solid, and it's like that. What it says on the U.S. dollar bill, for many, e pluribus unum. How do we, for many people, how can we develop one culture? So that's what we focus on. That was the first thing we focused on, developing a common culture with what kind of character we want to have inside the bank. And once we have that common culture, then we start to build upon it with our brand DNA. That's how we want our customers to perceive us. So we have why not attitude, intelligent, genuine, simple, and easy. Okay. These are all the things that actually represent the empowerment. And this is what we're trying to reinforce with Make the Difference. So everybody inside the bank, we've invested a lot of time and effort in this, in explaining the bank's philosophy of making a difference. But that's what I mean by institutionalizing this philosophy, this nice-to-have element of CSR, and integrate it within the organization. So from a learning and development perspective, as I mentioned, okay, we as an organization can tell employees to make a difference, but they don't really know how. So this is a baby step where they can actually learn about making a difference and in an experiential manner, make the difference. And those qualities and competencies that they learn, they can bring back to the organization. And it works both ways. So, this is part of a top-down idea, but a lot of grassroots teams, specifically on operations side, IT, I think even finance, use Fai-Fah as a team building channel as well. So there's a lot of unity to reinforce this one philosophy, and I think it's a transformation process. We're not at the end yet, but it's come a long way. This is something that we measure with Gallup in terms of employee engagement, and we've made huge jumps as a result of those efforts.
So how many people or percentage do you guess of the bank staff who are engaged?
In the program itself, because, well, actually, I would say 80%. Because we have it at the head office at Public Utility, but through the Fai-Fah in the box, they're able to touch and feel this Fai-Fah program and start to understand the mentality behind it. That's something that we want to grow. And then the branch can start to get not just the employees involved of the bank branch, but they can start to get their customers involved as well towards a common cause. So then you have 450 outreach centers that can target micro communities that are in need.
Robert Kinnear, Alternative Innovations. Just a comment, it seems like your Fai-Fah actually ought to be an integral part of the national education program. That's so good. The comment, the sort of question though is, you're working with all these people at a junior level to raise their awareness in all the aspects you've very clearly defined to become better citizens, all as they grow older and perhaps even become politicians and prime ministers. Some of them, you never know. Given that you're talking about corporate things, do you, and you mentioned just in an answer to the last question about the top-down effect, have you considered making the approach from the top down exactly that, by reaching out to political circles to try and educate them in the same way, to take a Fai-Fah to them so that CEO of Thailand can learn CSR?
Yeah, funny you say that. Right now it is, Fai-Fah is primarily in Bangkok. EMA has taken notice. So they sent, what do you call it, the governors from each Nayan. So it's almost a representative from each area of Bangkok, the heads, the representatives of the governor, to come listen to Fai-Fah as a case study. We also have something I didn't mention in this, to open it up to the larger community, a program we do with the BMA schools called Fai-Fah Bridge. Because part of the curriculum now is that they're starting to try to introduce this concept of CSR, philanthropy, to the children. So we said that, hey, if you want to do that, you could use Fai-Fah as an example. So during downtimes or non-prime times for Fai-Fah, these schools come to visit. And this is part of our operating rhythm as well. So yeah, I think from a grassroots level, rather than just coming and saying, hey, I think this is how you should do it, if they can learn by the examples that we're doing in a genuine way, then if they approach us, it makes it much stronger. I think
I'm Bernard Groth, and I like to ask, I like to compliment the bank what you have done. And nothing ventured, nothing gained. Is there already like a new department in development, maybe called what's the word? Micro-lending, because that may be the next level. Is this something already cooking?
Micro-lending is a whole different business. We, being a universal bank, are having a hard time enough competing as a universal bank. We're a mid-sized bank, ranked about 6 or 7 in terms of asset size. So one of the things that we realized early on is that we're not going to be able to do everything for everyone. Maybe one day in the future, but the role that we're going to take, akin to micro-lending, could be once we start to develop Fai-Fah and connect the dots for it to become a social business. So if the earnings that the children can gain from their work, that pot of money, maybe that can be used and leveraged towards children who are trying to become entrepreneurial. And then we have programs to support SME entrepreneurs and things like that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but no, we're not on the strategy completely thinking for micro-lending.
But there are always micro-lending institutions around the world which you may partner with, and then you can grow together instead of doing it yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, if Dr. Youssef comes back with Ramin Bank, then maybe I'll. But yeah, I'm open to that. And that's a great idea. But again, for CSR to be effective, and I think that's a good thing, it's always hard to say no to good initiatives, but we really need to try to laser focus so that we can make a real end-to-end difference. If micro-lending helps to reinforce that end-to-end difference for us, then yeah, that's something we'll definitely look at. But along the way, there are many tangents that we can take, but we really have to, as we're developing this thing, focus on what we're good at. But yeah.
Besides this one, does the bank have internal CSR?
One CSR. We only have one CSR program. So we focus on children's development, and then the other one that we do internally is about Blue Planet, what we call Blue Planet. That's recycling and environmental savings. Yes? Oh, yes?
Hi, my name is Mariah. I have many questions, but I will stick to just one. Coming from a background working for the United Nations, so having worked a lot with civil society, less so with CSR as such, often what we get from donors, the traditional donor way, is that we're poor in monitoring and evaluation. Yeah? How do you measure impact? And especially donors want to see what is the impact of our money, and you were mentioning it as well. Of course, as a business, you don't have that responsibility as such towards your donor because you're financing it internally. But how do you measure impact of this program for yourself?
We don't need external. We have our head of finance. But as I told her, sometimes people try to measure brands all the time. They try to develop this. How much is goodwill worth, and how much is the brand worth? How much is CSR worth? The first thing that we look at is the impact on the children, because each of the children who come in, they have to commit to 3 years of the program. So they learn 2 competencies. It could be music or it could be painting. And they have to keep on that for 3 years, not just scatter their efforts. And then we track the development. We have child psychiatrists on board from Harvard to help track problem kids, use art therapy as a way for expression and to vent. So we really track the progress of the children. We track the retention rate of the children. How often do they come? Or is there a huge churn? Luckily, there's not. But then what we're going to do this year is start to measure in terms of how many people are aware that TMB is making a difference in this regard. So people try to be clever and try to measure this stuff. We look at the end result, the end user, and then if it works, and we have about 250 kids each center, then we will continue this.
Last question?
Yes, I have a question and an example related to the question. Has your bank given much thought to developing CSR programs that might benefit, rather than the urban poor, outline agricultural areas to stem the tide of rural-urban migration. And the example that I have in mind from my own limited experience is actually right here at Chulalongkorn University. As a doctor, I forgive the mispronunciation, Cerebri has a research program, the Padang Biochar Research Center, Padang Research Center. And they're trying to develop new ways of infusing charcoal or biochar into the degraded soils of Isan, for example, and that gives not only immediate economic benefit to the farmers, but a source of income, potentially even carbon credits for the farmers. So in other words, I know you can't do everything for everyone, but there is a bigger picture underlying the problems of the urban poor relating to that migration. Do you think in those, I'm sure you do, but I'd be interested in your thoughts about the larger strategic picture in the rural poor?
Yeah, I think, as we canvass what we're going to do, a lot of great ideas came, a lot of people in need. We didn't actually look at specific issues with regard to development of farmers. I think a lot of NGOs are doing good jobs on that, including Kunbishai's, Theerathada's organization. But we're just trying to do what we think is right. We're not child development specialists, but we thought that, okay, we'll give it a try. We have a great idea of where the void is, and we thought that this is the direction we want to take with children's development and empowerment, starting from a young age at 12 to 17, where they're starting to formulate their own opinions, and teach them on how to make a difference in their community. So it's one small effort right now, and if we can grow, then maybe other opportunities will come. But, One more question.
Thank you for the great presentation. My name is Theerathada from PBOC. I'd like to ask one question. How do you project in the future, how you leverage your strength that you have as being in the banking industry to actually invest in some SCR activities in the future? SCR activities, like non-coalition SCR activities like this, and how do you see how that kind of related to your core business activities inside, so sustainability practices within your firm as well, that related to your operations? How do you see the connection, and how do you plan to link between the two?
If I understand your question correctly, two elements that we're going to focus on as next strategic steps for the bank. One is already in the process, and that's creating the foundation. By creating the foundation, it allows us to invest in expansion of Fai-Fah, but it gives the opportunity for external parties to contribute on the operational expenses of the Fai-Fah. Okay, we want that to be very, very transparent, and you know exactly where your money goes. And a great case study for that was Oxfam for us. Oxfam does a really good job in letting you know where your money goes. From a business or bank perspective, I think I alluded to it a while back, we want to start to develop Fai-Fah into becoming a social business. So everything that the kids learn internally, they can start to market and sell their own goods in an entrepreneurial fashion, and then we can help support and give strategies and teach accounting and financial literacy and things like that to these children as they try to become entrepreneurs, how to save their money and how to use their money wisely.
So on behalf of the Sassoon Center for Sustainability Management, I'd like to present the Paradai with a little thank you gift and make a few announcements after that. Thank you very, very much, Paradai.